Hello, everyone. I'm just waiting a moment as people join, and I think are still connecting to audio here. So there's just a couple more people joining. But welcome. My name is Sarah Dorner, and I am the Assistant Dean for Graduate Admissions and International Outreach at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law. We are thrilled to have you here with us today. I know we have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to do it. So I'm going to get us started here. Please know that we are recording and we will be sure to share this with you after in case there's anything you missed during today's discussion. So we'll get started and we will save some time at the end for questions. So I do invite you during the event today, if you want to put your questions in the chat, please do so. I'll keep an eye on that, and then we'll be sure to answer as many questions as we can at the end. I'm joined today with an alum of our law school, Abhishek Sharma, who earned his LLM in intellectual property with us in 2006. Is that right? I get that. Okay. 2006. And so he's with us today to talk a little bit about his LLM experience and how that helped him advance his career. He's now the managing partner of his law firm. And then the conversation will be led by Anuj Agrawal of Amicus Partners. I was just saying I get the pronunciation wrong. So he will lead the discussion, and then I will be here as well to help with the questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Anuj and Abhishek.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Okay, so like Sarah mentioned, we are running a bit tight on time. So Abhishek, I'll start right at it. Just before the IP practice bit, I really want to know what was some of the stronger memories, or the fonder memories you have of your time as a LLM student at UNH.
Thank you so much, Anuj. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for this invite. It's always a pleasure to connect with you and speak about my experiences, my lovely experiences, if I may use that adjective. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I think I have a lot of memories, and I'm talking from 2006 till today. And every time I keep going back there, they keep adding on. But I think some of the things that have always stood out is number one, the warmth of the Franklin Pierce community. I think I still, when I go back and the minute I see a professor or my friends from there, or if I connect with somebody on LinkedIn, I think it's a different vibe, as they call it. It's the different camaraderie that I feel. So the warmth of the Franklin Pierce community is something that has stayed with me forever. And the fact that I'm doing this after so many years with Sarah, and I've done many other talks as well, goes on to just show that it's like a long-term relationship that you're in, which you cannot have enough of. I certainly cannot have enough of. So that's number one, for sure. I think some of the other memories that I have, one was my moot court for some reason, because I was a very active mooter back in law school in Delhi, which is where I went to do which is where I did my LLB from, my JD from. My moot court in the LLM was something that I'm always very fond of, where I think I nailed it, for the lack of a better word. I had spent enough number of hours learning about how to write a proper brief in India and in the US. And then when I submitted my brief, I was praised by my professor. I think even during the oral arguments, I kind of nailed it. So that was great. The judge, who was the judge at that time, he made sure he mentioned about some of the arguments that I had made. So I think that's one memory that stands out. My graduation day, of course. Anybody who's joining from India will know it's a dream. It's a big, big dream to earn your LLM degree or any master's degree from a foreign university. And my graduation day was very emotional. My parents could not make it for some reason, but the feeling of receiving that graduation cap on your head, having that graduation cap on your head and that robe and that walk towards the graduation ceremony, the whole place called White Park was unbelievable. And I think it stays with me. Believe it or not, every year when I go to the college, I walk up to this park called White Park, which is just opposite our college. There is a small bridge called Pierce Bridge. I stand next to it and I take a picture. And I feel that part of planet Earth belongs to me for some reason. I always go back, I always take that picture. And I think these were some of the fondest memories that I have from Franklin Pierce.
That's quite powerful actually.
Yeah.
So I'm just referring to the profile piece that we ran earlier. I found it very interesting how you went about the LLM. And one of the interesting bits was you really wanted to understand how Americans or how things work, how people work in the US. Could you tell me a bit more about how you went about that and how do you use that in your current practice with, say, US clients?
Right. So my first job ever was in the US. After I graduated with my LLB, of course, I've done internships, I've done my extended externships and all those things. But my first job, so to say, my first employment was directly in the US. And when I say the American ways of working, I basically refer to largely 3 or 4 things. One is the general approach towards your work is what I found to be very professional. And I'm not trying to disrespect the way we function in India. It's obviously very professional, but it's driven by relationship building. When I work in India, even now, and I have another partner who keeps pulling my leg on this, we still have to have some sort of personal rapport, personal relationship with the client, in order to make sure that we continue to stay on a retainer basis, or we continue to assist that particular client for a longer term. So relationship building is hands down the first thing you have to do. What I found in the US, well, you don't have to gel with your client on a personal level. You need to have that professional relationship at all different times. And I think that was one difference that I noticed, that your approach towards work was strictly professional. You don't have to, like some of my clients invite me for their daughters' weddings or for their younger brothers' weddings, and it happens all the time. You keep your lawyers and your accountants close to you, right? I can't imagine being invited to anybody in the US for their wedding or for their younger brother's wedding or for their daughter's wedding. That was number one. I think the communication style is also very different. I think you have to have, there is a very indirect way of communication that I found in India. And it's great, it works wonders, but things are slightly more direct in the US. We don't really beat around the bush, if that's the phrase I'm using it right. We just stick to the point. If the agenda of the meeting is 30 minutes, you finish it off in 30 minutes and you leave. Sometimes in India, I have spent an hour and a half to conduct a meeting, because you got to talk about how's the family, you talk about how's that thing going, how's that XYZ thing going, what happened in that particular case, how's your car running, is BMW better than Audi, is Kia Seltos better than Kia Sonet? And it's slightly different. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I love both. I go back and forth, but the communication style is different. I think it's more direct in the US, and I think that was one of the American way of working that I learned. I think formality and if I may say hierarchy is a bit more in India. If you have somebody elder to you, you got to address them in a certain manner. You got to call them sir, or you say you address them in a particular manner. You got to probably touch their feet if that's important, or if you come from that part of the country.
Yeah.
I've had cases where I meet a client's dad and I ended up touching their feet, because that's the way to show your respect. And this guy has been in the industry for 50, 60 years. So it automatically comes to us. I can't imagine touching anybody's feet in the US and them not freaking out, or them thinking that I'm trying to pick up something from the floor, right? So it's a different type of formality. So that was another American, way of working that I learned. And I think one more that I always mention it to my other partner also is that the decision-making process in India is very consensus-oriented. So of course, depending on what kind of clients are you dealing with or what kind of people are you dealing with. But to give you an example, I was dealing with a client which had 3 brothers as partners. So any and every decision, the smallest of decision, they need a proper consensus.
Yeah.
So I had to pitch one, then sometimes I had to pitch to 2, and then one final pitching has to happen with all 3 of them sitting in the board.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I did mention the same thing twice already. Whereas in the US, you pitch it to the right kind of person, he takes it forward, he decides internally, and he gets back to you, or he doesn't.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
those are some of the things. Those are some of the examples.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I mean, the general theme is the soft skills that you've learned, right? I mean, it's crucial for success.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll just go a little more technical in nature. So just from your own practice in terms of intellectual property, you mentioned that crucial knowledge is trademark, licensing, and copyright laws, right? They're of great value to IP practitioners. Any other, say, fields of law that you think IP practitioners should focus on, especially those who are looking for a more global practice like the one that you have?
Yeah, I think so. So broadly speaking, when you talk about intellectual property, you talk about uh, something known as patents and something known as soft IP. I don't know why we call it soft IP, but I personally hate it. And when I say soft IP, I mean trademarks and copyrights. So when you say patents, then of course the kind of areas that you have to focus on is of course patent laws, and what are the upcoming challenges in patent laws, so on and so forth. But when I talk about soft IP or copyrights or trademarks, you need to probably look at ever emerging areas of, let's say, AI and technology laws. You've got to probably focus on cybersecurity issues. You're going to talk about privacy issues. Those are some of the areas that you got to keep yourself updated with. Apart from the usual bread and butter changes that happen in trademark and copyright, subjects.
And would you encourage or would you see an LLM as a way of means of acquiring this kind of knowledge?
Oh, 100%. Oh, 110%. Because again, I've been very fortunate to learn some of the things during my times in the US, and I go back every year. The part of the reason why I go back every year is to keep continuing to educate myself. I end up enrolling myself to one or two certificate courses, and I know, even though it's not a part of, it's not a mandate from the state bar that I'm a part of to come up with CLEs or continued legal education credits. I'm not supposed to do that. But out of my own hunger, out of my own willingness to learn, I end up enrolling for these multiple courses. These days, you can do a lot of online courses as well. But I keep going back to these academic courses to learn the black letter law, to understand the concepts which need problem solving. So an LLM is absolutely a must, I think, because that really opens up avenues for you at a global level, And I can talk about myself. When I did my LLB here, the JD here, I knew the basics. I knew the bare acts. I knew the sections. I knew whatever is supposed to be studied in the law school in India. When I landed in the US, I had this zoomed out global perspective of how IP fits at a global scale. One of the examples that stands out in my mind right now was trade dress. Okay, I didn't know what trade dress is to the level that I should have known when I did my LLB here, and I knew it's something to do with how you package your business and something around that. When I started learning about trade dress in my LLM, it was a new world altogether. I ended up writing something on trade dress. I ended up talking about it. The moot court that I did was on trade dress, which I think I nailed it. I'm not sure, but that was great. So an LLM or constantly updating yourself with these courses is absolutely a must, I feel.
I don't mean to put you on a spot, but given your position right now, would you prefer a lawyer with an LLM and say an LLM from Franklin Pierce from a hiring perspective?
I wish I could show you my inbox. I've got 6 or 7 resumes already. People who are graduating, they're after me. They've already asked me for interviews. They've already asked me to see if we can somehow work together, if they can volunteer. My answer is absolutely yes. It's a no-brainer for me. I would always and any day work with anybody who has an LLM from Franklin Pierce or otherwise also. But I obviously prefer Franklin Pierce because I know what kind of grind they have gone through, what kind of courses they have taken. In fact, every year when I go there, I end up meeting some of them. I met 4 or 5 this last September, October also when I was there. So yeah, I think it's not because of my liking for a particular institute, or it's not because I'm an alumnus from Franklin Pierce that I would hire them. I think it's because of the specialized knowledge that they bring to the table. I think it's because of the, like I mentioned, the global view that they bring to the table. I think it's because of the research and writing skills that they have developed over these years, and especially in the US, which is, by the way, very different from what we learn in India. And if you allow me a couple of minutes, I'll share a small incident with you. I thought I knew how to write, okay, and we are reasonably well fed in the Indian legal education scenario. You're given notes. There are professors who would present PPTs, and you take down your notes. Sometimes they hand over the notes to you. You photocopy them, and then you're done and dusted. That's how you study, right? When I landed there, I had 60, 70 pages of assignment before the class. And I thought, okay, well, I'll skim through it. I don't need to know all this because this is exactly what the professor is going to talk about. No, he did not touch up those 60 pages at all. He went into the analysis rather than talking about what the judge said, he said, why do you think the judge said this? Do you think judge would have said this if he had different political views? And I had no idea to these questions, right? So I think it opens up your avenues. And I really thought my writing skills are at par until I got my first assignment in legal writing class. I had written like 6 or 7 pages. All of them were struck in green pen, and the beautiful words conclusory were written on it, which basically meant that I had not made an argument. It was just I had written a judgment, than a legal memo. And I thought, what's wrong? I had written these beautiful 6, 7, 8 pages. So I obviously spoke to my professor, and he broke it down for me. He taught me exactly why what I've written is very close to garbage and why I need to upgrade my skills. So anybody who's gone through the grind, anybody who understands how legal writing works, especially in the US, I would totally work with them because they have those research and writing skills. Obviously, they have better networking, better communication skills. Because again, if you're an Indian law student who's graduated from an Indian law school, and you're trying to practice or build a career in IP without the LLM, you can do well, but there is an instant upgrade that I feel when you graduate with an LLM degree, because you've spoken to people from different nationalities, you've dealt with different accents, you've dealt with issues that probably you would not be able to discuss if you just stay in India. So you're better networking. You're better at networking. You're good with communication skills. It's almost a no-brainer. And these are some of the skills that they're pitching to me. In fact, these are some of the cover letters that come to me with all these things that I've just mentioned, that we are good at this. We have a specialized knowledge. We're good at research and writing. We're good at networking and communication. So I think I would definitely, from a hiring perspective, I would definitely prefer somebody with an LLM.
Oh, that's great. So just before we move on, if and there are any questions, you can always put it in chat, because we have another 2 or 3 questions left with Abhishek, and then we'll do the Q&A session. So if there are any questions right now, you can always put it in chat, and then we'll take it up towards the end. Abhishek, just coming back to you, I know you really invest in your interns as well, right? I mean, you spend a lot of resources on them. So sorry. Yeah, could you tell me a bit about why you do this and how it's worked out?
It's worked out fine. It's worked out great for me. I think why I do it, because when I was a law student, when I was somebody who was looking for an internship, there was hardly anybody who assisted me. There was pretty much nobody who gave me any references or guided me, or we didn't have these sessions back in the day, obviously. And I'm talking 2000 to 2005, which is when I graduated with my LLB degree. I do it for the love of giving back. I do it for the same reason why we all in the legal profession, to give it back to the society, to give it back to our peers, to give it back to students. I think somewhere I also have a teacher inside me. That's why I coach and mentor students. I take up any possible engagement to educate. I'm usually the first one to grab that opportunity with open arms. That's the big picture reason why I do that.
Yeah.
And it's not just giving them an internship and not talking to them. I've been told that I'm really good at it, and can I show you something if you don't mind? I know I'm going a little off topic. Something that I received very recently, and I'm kind of really pepped up about it. Can you see this? It
Yeah.
says "Cool Boss." I got
Hashtag
this
as
from
well.
yeah, I got this from a bunch of my interns only because they thought I'm like that. And again, it's coming from a lot of love. It's coming from a lot of love and affection, and my intention to coach and mentor them. So it's not just about giving internships and letting them be in my office space. I also talk to them. I utilize them on billable matters. That's one of the policies that I've had in since a few years now. That any intern who's deserving, he or she is going to work on billable matters, not just like a research paper or finding judgments or coming up with a case law. They will work with me on real billable matters. And yeah, that's how I deal with interns.
And when you advise them, are there any specific piece of advice you give with respect to building a career? I mean, it might be too early, but do you tell them that these are skills you might require when you are looking at building a global practice?
Many, yes. Okay, I'll share a few with you. One is if you're building a practice in IP, then you got to focus on IP courses. And usually the decision to usually the decision to practice in IP happens somewhere around third year, second or third year, or maybe at the most fourth year of your law school if you're doing a 5-year law course. So when you're taking your courses, you got to make sure that you just don't study your courses which you are taught in the law school, but you also take certain extra courses, maybe do a certificate course, maybe take up summer programs from Franklin Pierce, or do some certificate courses online to make sure that you're constantly educating. So basically, educating yourself is an absolute must.
Okay.
If they can, I would also encourage them to pursue LLM from a prestigious college. And if they want to focus on IP, then I recommend them obviously to Franklin Pierce because I've seen how it works. I know how it works. And I think Sarah would let you know more on this, but I've referred easily 6 or 7 students in the last 2-3 years. Some of them have been graduates of Franklin Pierce as well. So I keep in touch. I've written recommendation letters to them for their LLM programs as well. That's the second thing. And I think apart from that, I tell them to gain practical experiences. I tell them to do internships, not just with me, but also go and reach out to other IP law firms and see if they can learn from other people as well. See what kind of style they have of coaching and mentoring.
Yeah.
I also encourage them to join IP organizations. For example, INTA is one that I
Okay.
encourage them to join. I encourage them to read a lot of blogs, a lot of judgments, and so on and so forth. I think I also encourage them um, to just generally embrace changes because sometimes you plan a certain thing and then it doesn't work well. It doesn't work your way. Yeah, for example, recently I had an intern who wanted to do an LLM, but for some reason he was not able to go through. That's okay. He still can, shift gears and make something out of whatever opportunities he's been given. So these are some of the advices: focusing on IP courses, if possible, pursue an LLM course, gain practical experiences and other internships also, join IP organizations, seek mentorship from others as well, and be open to changes.
Okay. Uh, that's some fantastic advice. I'll just quickly come to the questions. I think we're still a bit short on time. Question
Yes.
one is, what opportunities are available for international students in IP? I'm presuming without clearing the Indian bar and after clearing the bar.
That's a great question. I think if you're an Indian student who's planning to go to the US, somewhere you should be ready to take up the bar exam as well.
The US bar, you're saying? I mean, the state.
The US bar exam.
Okay.
Yes, yes. The Indian bar you have to take for sure. But if you're trying to set up something in the US, if you're trying to position yourself in the US, be open from day one to at some point of time take up the New York State Bar exam or California State Bar exam. Because if you clear that, you will be in another league. You don't have to work as an assistant or a junior attorney or not. You won't be an attorney until you clear the bar exam in the US. So you won't be doing the paralegal work or the legal assistant work. You can once you clear the bar exam, you'll be all set. You'll be focusing on an attorney path and hopefully in a partner path. If you don't take the US bar, or if you for some reason you don't, clear the US bar, then things are very uphill for you. It's an uphill task for you. But that being said, I'm a person of hope. I myself got a job without having a bar exam in my pocket. I still don't have the bar exam in my pocket, either from New York or California. But my first job, I landed in California by being probably at the right place at the right time. But I think somewhere, if I must say, it's an uphill task, and things have changed a lot. Things have changed a lot. Nobody's looking to hire somebody without the bar exam, if I may put it clearly, because there are n number of people, there are so many other people, and if they can hire somebody local, somebody who's an American for the same kind of job, why would they hire you? Somehow, if you can, there is a fairly large amount of Indian American community in the US as well. If you can somehow find your way to an IP lawyer who's of Indian American origin, who might look at your resume, you might have a chance. And these are two mights in the same sentence.
And say other qualifications, like say a patent officer, do you recommend any of those kind of qualifications?
So for patents, there is a separate patent bar.
Yeah.
Again, if you clear the patent bar, you're all set, because patent professionals get paid slightly more because too much at stake. Also, their billing rates are much higher. So if you're an engineer going to, let's say, an MIP program, we have a very beautiful MIP program at Franklin Pierce. If you're an engineer trying to make a career in the field of IP, you should get into an MIP program, which is Masters in Intellectual Property. There, they will train you how to use your technical background and apply it to patent law. Okay. If you do that, it's almost a no-brainer that you have to take the patent bar. Once you take the patent bar, then of course it's a different, path for you. But if you're a soft IP guy, then without the bar exam is still an uphill task, because I speak to people who have graduated recently in the last 4, 5, 6 years. They struggled a lot. I don't remember anybody who got a job in the US. Most of them had to come back and study for the bar remotely, go back, take the bar, clear the bar, and then maybe look at being hired by an American law firm.
And I think I would, just to add to that too, and I know we have other questions, but for students who do want to practice, I think if you want to practice as an attorney in the US, you need to sit for a US bar exam.
Yeah. So
there'll be other job opportunities that might be available to you here in the US, but you wouldn't be able to practice as a licensed attorney. That if your plan is to return to your home country, whether or not the bar is required, I think, Abhishek, I imagine you would argue that it's still really good to have that credential and can be useful in your career. But what I would say as well is that students, after they finish the LLM, are eligible for optional practical training, where they can extend their visa to stay in the US for 1 year to work. And most of those students would not have sat for a US bar exam yet. The bar exam is typically offered in July and February. So students are looking for work without having first had the opportunity to sit for the bar exam. And so what I would just offer to you, is that we do have a career services office at our law school that is absolutely phenomenal. And they work really closely with our LLM students to help them on what their next steps will be after the LLM. And so for our students, that's really a mix. We do have a lot of students are here for the LLM, and then they plan to return home. Last year, we actually had 2 students from India who came, they did their LLM, and then they returned to India, and we'll actually be speaking with one of those students next month, and he'll share about his experience. Several other students last year, they stayed, they pursued OPT, they got some really great jobs, and are either currently preparing for the bar or may have already sat for the bar. So it really varies, but our career services office will work with you regardless of what your goals are, as will for those pursuing OPT. Our Office of International Students and Scholars will support you through the visa aspect, the immigration component of staying in the US to work.
Yeah, great points. I think the last chat we had with Mitra, she also discussed, the strategy forward. Abhishek,
Yeah,
this
and that's a great reminder too, is maybe what I'll do when we share the recording to today, I can also share we did two other similar chats with Anuj just mentioned Mithra, who spoke about, she's a recent graduate who spoke about her experience sitting for the bar exam and also pursuing optional practical training at TikTok. So I can maybe share that recording as well, just so you can hear her story. And then certainly look for an announcement in another couple of weeks about a virtual chat that we'll have with Hitarth Parikh about his experience since graduating last year and where he's working now in India.
Yep. Abhishek, just two more questions.
Yes.
Just take a little more of your time. One is,
Yes.
I'm sure you've been asked this a lot. One is work experience relevant before applying for a master's? Or do I just go
I mean,
fresh?
it's a yes and no kind of a question. It's a chicken and an egg problem. People always ask me whether should I do my LLM first and then start working, or should I gain a couple of years of experience and then do my LLM? Look, I did my LLM right after my law school in India. I think I was in the mode of studying. There is a momentum that I was in. I was used to spending long hours in the library. I didn't mind spending some more time in the library, like one more year in the library. So I would recommend right after your law school, if you do it, that's great. It's always difficult to go back to books once you've tasted blood, once you've tasted the money part of it, the salary part of it. It's always slightly more difficult than just fresh out of law school if you enroll for an LLM. So I would always encourage you to do your LLM and get done with it. And then you probably start your professional practice.
Okay.
And I, just thinking, I'm thinking through the lens of our Dean of Career Services. And I think that he would say that if your goal is to pursue optional practical training here in the US, coming in with some work experience would be beneficial, right? It could help you stand out. I know that in India, students have the opportunity to participate in a number of different internships while they're students. So, that does count as work experience. So I think there is no right or wrong. I think, from an admissions standpoint, we welcome students from who have had experience and students who are newer graduates. But I think that certainly having that experience can help you stand out in the job market here in the US. But I wouldn't want to deter people from applying, but it can be. I think a number of our students from India do tend to take one or 2 years. We see applicants in their final year of law school, and then a number of students who have had a couple of years of work experience and then take the time to come and do their LLM.
Yeah, I really don't think there's one correct answer for this.
Yeah, there is no one size fits all kind of an answer. I think the day you decide to do your LLM, you should just go for it, because a lot of good things are going to happen to you after you have your LLM. So irrespective of if you're working already and you're ready to take a break and focus on your LLM, go for it. If you're a recent law graduate and you want to do your LLM, go for it. There's no really one size fits all answer for this.
Just final question. So this is it's a question on legal writing. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but what are the differences in the legal writing requirements in a US university as compared to your time as an Indian law student? So, yeah.
Okay, I think, and Sarah can help me with this answer a little bit more, but I think when I was doing my LLB in India, I think we were judged in a very different way. I always started my answer with a bit of background. If I have to write about, let's say, discuss copyright laws in the in India, I would give them a detailed history, or like at least a substantial history of how it worked, how the idea came, etc., etc. Then I will address the question at hand. I will address the issue at hand. What I realized in the US is you address the issue at hand first. Like you don't have to fill in pages. You don't have to talk in depth about the issue at hand. So if the question asked is, do you agree with this decision? Your answer should be, yes, I agree with this decision because, and you start giving your answers. There is also a format that I learned in the US law school called IRAC, which is Issue, Rule, Analysis, and Conclusion. I think that really helped my legal writing a lot more. We were probably not, trained about the IRAC rule in India, and we would, structure an answer the way we want to structure an answer. If depending on how much you can retain, depending on how much you can reproduce at the examination hall, you would just write your answers. But I think in the US, probably it was a very structured kind of answer that was expected out of you, number one. Number two, even in practice, even in my current practice, just like the emails that I write, I don't have to be too descriptive when I'm dealing with a client from the US. Because if there's too much to talk, then I would probably set up a call. Okay. Whereas in India, they need the entire summary of trademark registration process on record. They want to see how step by step it happens. So my legal writing is very different, and I switch back and forth when it comes to my Indian clients and the and the American clients. But I think in terms of structuring, in terms of the tonality, sometimes you have to have a specific. You can't be very diplomatic in your emails. I think you have to be really direct, especially with my kind of clients. I deal with some private equity people and venture capital firms. They don't like. They need the answer in a yes or a no, and in the shortest email possible, in the shortest format possible. So yeah, those are some of the things that I feel are different.
Okay. Unfortunately, we really are pressed for time here. So if there are any questions, you can always email Sarah or Abhishek directly. I think there'll be a follow-up email being sent. Sarah, or Abhishek, any closing comments? Anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think I just want to summarize by saying this. What I've already mentioned. I think if you're at that stage in your professional career where you're trying to set up your career in the field of intellectual property, I'm a living example. I'm a living testimonial of what an LLM can do to you. And you can choose the best law school that you want to. You can, depending on the budgets, depending on whatever your preferences and choices are. But I think I made the best decision of my life by enrolling for an LLM program from a college that had everything to offer in the field of IP. So if you are in that stage where you are worried about, or if you generally want to just set up your career in the longer run in the field of IP, I think you are at the right forum. You're connected with the right kind of people. Sarah can assist you immensely with the academic process, with any and every questions that you may have. In terms of your practice building, in terms of what are the real life challenges that you may face, or in terms of what skills you need to develop, I'll be more than happy to connect with any of you, all of you individually as well. And I'll mention my email as well. I think we'll send you a follow-up email with my contact details as well.
Yeah, and I would just thank you, Abhishek, for joining us today, for taking the time to share about your experience. I think it's so helpful, for students who are thinking about pursuing their LLM and IP in the US and at our school to hear that firsthand experience about how it's benefited you and your career. And we truly appreciate you paying it forward. So thank you. And I did put my email in the chat, and as we said, we will send out a follow-up email either by early next week. We'll get that out to you so that you can go back and watch this again and be able to get in touch with us should you have further questions. We are accepting applications for our LLM and intellectual property. Beginning, we have an in-person program and an online program that the next start date is in August. So I'd be happy to connect with you if you're interested in applying and getting started with your LLM this coming fall. There's still plenty of time to apply. And Anuj, I'll turn it over to you to wrap us up.
No, I think it was fantastic. I mean, I learned a lot. So I think from a selfish perspective, I'd love to do this again. But no, I think some very useful advice, some very practical advice, and also, very direct advice, which is always useful. So thank you, Abhishek, and thank you, Sarah, for letting me sit in this conversation. I think it was very, very informative. Right?
Thank you, Anuj. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Have a good day or a good evening. I think evening probably for most of you. So take care.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, guys.